Welcome everybody to Project Pack number 22. This is our 12 days of Zentangle for 2023. My name is Martha.
And I'm Molly. It's hard to say that, isn't it?
I know, we get a little bit mixed up.
Well, we're very excited to be here with you all. This has been a really fun series so far. Hopefully you've been joining along from the start. If this is your first class you're taking, welcome. We're happy to have you here. We have a really exciting box of tools for everybody. Some really cool tiles that are brand new. We're having a blast with them, and all of that is described in detail in our introductory video, which you can all view if you are not familiar with any of the tools.
Yeah, it's a good idea to look at that before you start off with this lesson.
And as usual, if you do not have a Project Pack 22 in your hands at this very moment, we encourage you to grab whatever tools you have available to you and see what you can create with what you do have. So please stay on. And
spiral along with us.
I know. Join us for sure. What do we got here today, Martha?
All right. We are working on another one of these gorgeous pre-strung tiles. These are these beautiful 5x5.
I love it.
It's
it's
actually good amount of space here. It's a lot of space.
It is. They're big tiles, and we've kind of been trying to tell people all along, like, just do what you can. If you're like happy to be like diving into these tiles and doing them all every night, that's great. If you can just like chip away at them, then that's fine too.
Enjoy the time.
Enjoy the opportunity.
So I'm going to start off, my tile is already strung for me, so I'm going to start off with the brown Micron 05 pen that was in my supply kit, and it's good to work with an 05 on this bigger tile. It's because we're going to be working maybe a little bit, drawing a little bit larger than you normally do, so yeah, take advantage of that larger nib. Basically, we've got 3 lines here. Believe it or not, it's only 3 lines.
I know, Martha and I were just looking at it and we're like, this is really a quite simple
it's simple
approach.
And gorgeously complex at the same time. So we're going to be working primarily with the Tangle Muka, or a variation of Muka. And we want these Mukas to travel with us from the outer circle to the inner circle. So with the brown pen, I'm using this, I'm starting on the edge. Any one of these, doesn't matter, they're all the same. I'm going to start here and use that string as a guide to draw my first Muka shape. And I'm really kind of drawing a nice long stem. And you'll notice, and I'm doing this somewhat on purpose, that I have a bit of a shaky line going. I don't want to strive for perfectly straight lines. I'm enjoying kind of a jagged edge. Now my next Muka is going to go in the opposite direction, joining its partner. It's a bit of a coffee hand. If you've had several cups of coffee, maybe that's what your lines would look like. So with this coupling of Mukas, I'm now going to layer smaller Mukas underneath. I'm going to start off my smaller Muka. It's going to go under this one that I've already drawn. Come back around, and I'm landing on the line. I'm landing on the string down here. So I'm going to layer several of these Mukas.
I actually love the coffee hand detail.
Yeah, so it's going to add sort of an unexpected texture when you're sort of stand back from the whole thing. So here I'm going to layer these. It's also kind of fun.
Don't have to worry about your lines being straight, that's for sure. That's great.
Well, I'm not going to really tell you where this idea came from, but it could have had something to do with an extra cup of coffee in the morning.
I love it. I think it's great.
But it was an unexpected result, and I thought it looked pretty cool. Okay, so this is our basic setup, and we're going to repeat this while we follow this string line to the center. I'm going to grow the next coupling of mukas right out of the center here. And you'll see my string is over here. I'm using it as a guide to kind of lay down this first muka. And each time I draw this, mukas coming out of here, and even at the bottom you'll see I'm sort of landing and beginning on the same area, and it's collecting its own little bit of ink and adding to the texture. So another one will grow off of here. And I'm landing in that same spot. And now I'll start to layer on either side.
I think we've called this a stacked muka before. Perhaps, maybe?
Perhaps it's stacked.
Yeah.
Now it's spiraling and stacked.
Yeah.
So here we go again. Follow that string line. Don't be afraid to be boisterous with your mukas. They can kind of spring about.
Boisterous mukas?
Boisterous mukas. You'll kind of get the hang of this, wavy line here. It's fun. And of course, you don't have to do that, but it seems to be that it's just an interesting element. Turning my tile and following the string line. Muka has certainly been through a lot of different evolutions over the years, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's kind of like how styles change, you know? It's like we wore certain things in the 80s, and then I feel like muka just takes on like that type of personality, you know?
So we're almost to the center here. We've worked a lot with the brown pen in this project pack, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm kind of finding a new affinity for brown pens.
Well, especially you also have a black. It's like this cool ability to kind of go back in with a super dark. That looks beautiful, Martha. I mean, kind of love it. Just
it's kind of
the one.
Yeah,
so cool.
Okay, I'm going to leave this for now. And so we started here on this string line right here. So I'm going to come to the next one right here, and we're going to do the same thing. Starting on the outer circle, and with a big muka stroke, enjoying those consistently inconsistent lines. Working my way around this spiral, and now as we start to get close to some other stuff going on here, we just want to get creative and make sure every little muka finds its space. Perhaps they bump into each other a little bit here and there. I think this is where it gets kind of interesting when you do start to layer them, and then the overall effect is quite impressive and mysterious. So now I'm going to actually see, we have this string line, the last line here, and now we're going to work in the opposite direction.
What?
I know, why not?
Switching it up.
So we're switching it up. So now the mukas are going to flow in the other direction. And honestly, you could do all three in the same direction if you wanted to.
It is a little trickery. I like switching.
Yeah, it'll just give it a little bit more of a flowing situation. Wherever your string is, it can nestle up against anything that's there. And draw your first muka shape where space allows. It also helps with space by having them go in a different direction. A little bit more room for them to roam, if you will. And now again, we're going to follow the string line. Each one of your mukas can have its own personality. Kind of living its best life here on this tile. Next row here. It's kind of fun to sit back for a minute and kind of see where things are.
Again, this is like a really cool way that like using the string as inspiration to sort of create something that may not have come about naturally. So kind of fun.
I just went over the string line there a little bit. That's gonna have to be okay. These wide open muka shapes are a wonderful way of sort of keeping light on a tile, so you can imagine we're going to be adding some different layers of graphite and other things, and these mukas can kind of stay bright and white. So we're laying down this foundation of opportunity.
It's a nice way to say it, Martha. What if we just pictured everything in our life to be a foundation of opportunity?
A foundation of opportunity. So I see that my string sort of finishes here, but I may sort of bring it on home, if you will, pull it around the edge there a little. Your tile might have a different opportunity. Maybe I'll honor the string here and have it finish like that.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a little dizzying. So while I still have my brown pen, I am going to go back and kind of re-emphasize some things that were happening organically. So if we go back to this first one where we started, you can see that there was just bits of ink that were gathering as we finished and started on the same point. And the same thing with where these kind of columns started. So I'm going to just kind of emphasize those areas with a little bit of ink. And then, I don't know, these little wavy lines sometimes create opportunities for adding some texturing drama, very much like Diva Dance, which we add those lines on purpose, but here we have spaces that are sort of left for us. So you can add just some little bits here and there as it appears on your tile. And just part of the layering and balance to line work is a little bit of drama here and there, not a lot. And where these little muka couplings are, I am kind of rounding that space right there. Anywhere you have lines that touch. You could also choose to fill in these little areas where your mukas are nestled in with one another. That's kind of a nice touch.
The weighting makes a huge difference. Just looking at the ones that are done and not done, you see that.
Well, it's sort of re-emphasizing the kind of awesomeness of it, you know?
You're full of really good words with re-emphasizing the awesomeness. I think that's...
Can you write that down?
I'm gonna put that on my mirror when I wake up in the morning. Today's the day I re-emphasize the awesomeness.
First, you must lay down a foundation of opportunity.
Yes, there we go. I'm gonna write this down, Martha.
Well, that is kind of what this does. It's like if you're going to put down a line, you're going to own it. So let's make it count and add a little oomph to it.
And sort of like, I guess just trust that like there's a lot of different ways we're going to put things down every day.
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous. Love
so
that.
You can kind of see the difference, as you were saying. It really changes what's going on here. So take your time, kind of work your way back around that tile, around those beautiful string lines that can hardly see anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's this type of process, this process where you get to make these choices over and over. It's kind of what makes you feel like an artist.
Ooh, definitely.
So I can tell you how to do this or show you how to do that, but now is the time where you have to look at your tile and you choose. So it's hard to say when you're done because you can sort of keep adding and keep adding and keep adding, but at some point you'll decide that you're happy with the amount of ink you've put down. Of course, you can always add more later. All right, so I think we're ready to maybe add some new elements to this tile.
This is beautiful, Martha. I'm actually just loving it as is. And one option would be to leave it and just shade it as is, like
Actually, that would be very cool.
It's really pretty. But because we're here and we like to show you things, we're going to do a little bit of a background that's going to hopefully sit in the back, but in a kind of funky little way. So we're going to do an oldie but goodie, a tangle called Knightsbridge. And I'm going to be working in these spaces between. And I'm going to be using with my black 01 micron, but you're welcome to either use a bigger black pen and kind of switch back and forth. That's up to you. I think I want the precision right now, but maybe when we start inking in, you might change your mind. So Knightsbridge is a series of lines, parallel lines going in one direction and then in another direction to create a checkerboard. And they don't have to be perfect. It can kind of be wonky. So I'm just gonna work in this like kind of general inside space to get started. And then you're gonna wanna do lines going in the other direction. And I'm kind of purposely not making them exact because I like to have a little curiousness. Something like that. So we have this cool little grid shape, and then we're just gonna fill them in. So I'm gonna start somewhere where I can see all of the squares, and I'm gonna start with one, just very carefully filling in one square. And then from there, we have a trick where we always look at the corners. So we always kiss the corners. So to find where the next one is, I'm going to fill in, I find one where it touches corners. And I feel like that kind of makes it so you're always filling in the right square. So you're looking for one that touches corners. And if you just focus on the boxes that touch corners and you don't skip around too much, I think you usually stay on track. Even if you turn your tile, you can still locate corners. All right, so we're kind of starting to see the checkerboards behind. Don't ever hesitate to explore these very basic tangles because they really offer so much. All right, so we have that center space done. Now I'm gonna start to kind of drift out into the other spaces. Here's another one I'm gonna do the same thing too. Alrighty, so I've kept going a little bit here. Obviously, I turned off the camera for a while and I worked all the way down one kind of avenue here to the tip, and so I have this kind of open here. So I'm going to give you guys some options, and there's always more options than I even give you, is to keep doing your Knightsbridge all the way throughout and just keep it as a monotangle and see how that goes. I'm going to switch to a second texture tangle here and see what happens, how we can kind of play around with the two different tangles and see how they kind of react. So I'm going to play around with a tangle called Tipple, super easy one. Tipple is just orbs, and like I said, we're playing around with textures, and I'm just going to be smushing these orbs all together. And as I work, I'm going to probably kind of fill in the little, if there are any little interstices or spaces between as I go, just to keep the flow going. And so as I said, I kind of played around with about a 50% of it being Knightsbridge and kind of going in this almost like paisley or yin and yang kind of thing going on here, but you can play with it however you want. Kind of find the flow with your little orbs. Turning your tile as you work. All right, I turned off the camera there for a little bit just so we could get into our flow with the tipple. Still just kind of filling all the spaces, taking your time, loosening the grip on your pen, finding that sweet spot where you have control over your lines, but you're not strangling the barrel of your pen each time. Almost there, just this little section here. All right, so we have these beautiful swirling mukas, and we are going to add a little bit of graphite in the background here and really try to make the mukas kind of pop forward. So I'm just carefully using the side of my pencil, but nice dark edge. I think I'm gonna just soften this up a little bit and see where we're at before we go to the rest of the tile here. Really trying to get that texture tangle pushed back.
So the idea is that you're not trying to shade the background, you're trying to shade around the muka.
That's a good way to put it. Really like separating the two. Try to really focus on where your Knightsbridge stops and your mukas begin. So I'm just going into all these little nooks and crannies and trying to vary, you know, getting the graphite maybe a little darker in some places, maybe easing up in others. Just take your time with the shading process. It's not something you want to rush. You want to kind of figure your way around it, look at your tangles and see what you have.
Okay, I think I'm going to pick up this ochre, yellow ochre pencil here and add just a little bit of color, not too much, on these mukas, maybe on these sort of more diva dance-like areas here.
They're like stems.
Yeah. Just towards the bottom. Using a somewhat clean tortillon. Well, that one wasn't very clean. I'm kind of just fading it into the top, but staying away from those, to the heads of the mukas. Maybe just adding a little bit of graphite towards the very bottom. Just a little bit.
Beautiful.
All right, so I'm just gonna work my way around, just smoothing it in and staying away from the muka heads. I'll start at the beginning again over here.
It's funny how that ochre color looks totally different when it's over the brown.
Yeah, it's quite orangey.
It's really pretty. I think when I'm shading, I do like to kind of chip away at it, kind of put a little down, blend a little bit. I think it allows you to see how things are developing.
Yeah, I agree.
She's pressing pretty hard with the graphite over that to get like a pretty intense shadow.
It also it goes on differently when you layer it over the other pencil, kind of.
Good point.
It's not that hard to get it to go down dark. I do have this sense a little bit like I could just keep going forever. But I think I'm going to put down the tortillons. But for just one kind of crowning element here, I may pick up my black 01 pen just for one final detail, and that is to just draw a very fine aura around the perimeter of the tile. And I'm kind of starting here because I have this sort of rogue muka that's coming out, and I'm going to leave it rogue, so I'm going to draw the line behind it. But I'll have that be my starting point. And just with the finest aura you can muster, and turning the tile and embracing any lumps or bumps that may need auraing. Not trying to have a perfectly smooth line. Very fine aura. You might not even notice it when you're all said and done, but it'll be there. Kind of a supportive role. Taking your time, appreciating all the efforts and strokes you've put into this tile.
Wow.
I think we did a good job.
I love it, Martha. Great work.
Shall
It's
we
really pretty.
put our chop on it?
I think we should.
All right.
That's amazing.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Fun stuff. Take care.